Morning. I know it's super early on a Saturday, but here we are. I'm Esther Boykin, marriage and family therapist, CEO of Group Therapy Associates, relationship coach, author, and this morning it's Kitchen Conversations with Esther. Today we're going to talk about a topic that I love talking about. Even though no one's on yet, I know it's super early. Well, not super early, but it's early for a Saturday, and so I do know a few people who are planning to join us a little bit later, and I actually have a couple questions from people. But today we're going to talk self-care. One of my favorite things to say, self-care is sexy. I think it's one of the most important topics for relationships, for good mental health, just for generally living a happier and healthier lifestyle, is making taking care of yourself a bigger priority, which seems pretty obvious, and yet something that doesn't happen all the time. As you can see, this morning's kitchen conversation is actually happening in my office, which is probably a perfect place for us to start, really, in terms of talking about what are some of the things that get in the way of self-care and what we can do about them. So I can say, obviously, for me, I'm in my office on a Saturday at 9 a.m. So one of the things that certainly gets in the way for myself and for a lot of other people would be things like work, and really a sense of obligation to other people, taking care of other people, taking care of whatever's important to them. And I think that happens a lot in relationships. It happens a lot for entrepreneurs, people who are really passionate about their work, especially for people who work in fields that are focused on caretaking, teachers, counselors, doctors, people who are very creative, who are creating things, creating content, creating products, creating art, music, whatever it is. There's a desire to sort of give to other people, and it's easy to get caught in a cycle where we're giving all the time and not making it a priority to give back to ourselves. And we do live in a culture that makes that feel a little bit selfish. For me to say, well, no, it's more important for me to go to the gym or take a nap or read a book or do the things that make me feel good and rested and rejuvenated than it is for me to, pick up lunch and drive it to my daughter at school or, go see the midnight movie my husband wants to see. Those are really great things when you have the time and the energy, and it's important to be compromising and giving, but it's easy to get caught in a cycle where it's always about giving what other people want instead of making time for the things that you need to do for yourself. So why does this really matter? What's the big deal? Aside from the fact that you don't get to do the things you enjoy doing that make you happy, that make you feel good, which is certainly very important. I think the best way to think about self-care and why it's so important is to go to the airplane rule. And I say this all the time, and it may sound a little bit cliche, but it's very true in life. You have to take care of you before you take care of the person next to you. So we've all been on a plane or you've seen a movie, and the first thing they say, if there's an emergency, if something happens, the oxygen masks fall, put yours on first. You can't save everyone else. You can't take care of everyone else. You can't meet everyone else's needs until you've met your own needs first. And that's really the underlying foundation of good self-care, is understanding that if you don't fill your own personal well, there's nothing left to give other people. And so as much as we want to give, we can't, because eventually we become burnt out, we become resentful, we become exhausted, we become sick, worst case scenario. All of those things can happen when we put ourselves on the back burner. So I think we've got a couple viewers on. If you know how to work Google Hangouts, you should hopefully see the column on the right-hand side of your screen. So if you've got questions or you would like to come on live on camera, just type your note to me in the chat section and I can bring you on, or we can read your question, we can talk a little bit that way. So I definitely would love to hear from everybody as you come on. Give me a shout out, let me know that you're here, and if there's something you want to add or a question you want to ask, I definitely would like to do that. It is kitchen conversations after all, so hopefully it won't just be me talking all morning. So coming back to the whole airplane rule and the idea that we need to sort of fill ourselves before we take care of other people, I think this is something that a lot of times couples also get caught up in. There's a tendency for there to be one person in a relationship who is more of the nurturer, more of the caretaker. And so it's easy to fall into a rhythm with somebody who is a caretaker and somebody who enjoys being taken care of, although we all like to be taken care of, where that becomes the expectation. And it doesn't usually come from a really malicious place or selfish place, but the expectation becomes one person takes care of the other. And if you aren't conscious about setting up a dynamic where it's reciprocal, and more importantly, where there is individual time for each of you to go take care of yourselves, then it can set up a relationship that ends up being unfulfilling to both people. The person who is always in a caretaking role gets burnt out, they get exhausted, they get tired of their needs not being met, they become angry or resentful or just no longer really want to be in the relationship. And the person on the receiving end of the caretaking, although it feels good at the beginning and it can be hard to switch, they also lose out. The person you were most attracted to, that you were drawn to initially, isn't the same person you're in a relationship with because they have put themselves on the back burner. And that really ties into, sort of one of my favorite things to say, self-care is sexy, but it truly is one of the sexiest things you can do in your relationship, because when you met, your partner was attracted to your best self. I mean, presumably you put your best self out there in the world and attracted this person, and they wanted to be with you at your best. You can't be at your best if you're not taking care of yourself, if you're not making time to say, I need to rest, I need to read, I need to do creative things, I need to have fun with my girls or go out with the guys, I need to exercise or eat right, or whatever those things that are really important to helping you be your best, you give them up. You start making sure that your partner's taken care of really well. Sometimes we equate being the best wife or mother or girlfriend or boyfriend with taking really good care of other people, and it doesn't translate into taking really good care of ourselves. And the truth is, to be a really great mother, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, you have to also be a really good caretaker of yourself. Sometimes I use the analogy that self-care is like the hair and makeup of your life. It's all the behind the scenes stuff that help us be our best self when we go out into the world and when we're in our relationships. It's all the things we do to sort of polish ourselves up to be our best. And it's not just about sort of physically being your best, being fit, or, getting your hair done or your nails done, or, for the fellas, getting to the barbershop. Those are important. Self-confidence and how you look and help you be, your best self. But those are not the only things that really matter. It's also things like making time to hang out and have fun with people who build you up, who feed parts of yourself that maybe aren't being fed in other relationships. What you do with your girlfriends or your guy friends or your mom or your sister is going to be different than what you do with your children or your spouse or your significant other. And so it's important to understand that relationships can be part of self-care as well. So we've got one viewer. Let's see, do we have any questions? So we don't have any live questions. So I do want to go to some of the questions that were emailed to me. So we've got one question, which is, what are some of the bigger obstacles to self-care and how do I get past them? So certainly the answer to the first question in terms of what are some of the biggest obstacles really boils down to personal lifestyle and your own kind of unique circumstances. Some of the biggest pretty commonly have to do with things like time, relationship obligations. So, I'm going to call that saying yes. Learning how to say no is one of the biggest things you could do to improve your self-care almost immediately. Because if you're saying yes to everyone else, that means that silently you're saying no to all the things that you want in your life, that you need for yourself, because there's only 24 hours. Can't do everything. And so I think probably the number one obstacle that I see, both clinically in my office and personally with friends and family, and to be perfectly honest with myself, is learning how to stop saying yes to everyone else and start saying yes to you. And, there's lots of good articles and books and Google Hangouts and all kinds of resources on learning how to say no, how to set boundaries. And I think those are fantastic resources. I love them. I do have a couple favorite books and articles on that, which I will post links to on my website later on today. But I also really like to focus on changing our perspective on that. And so instead of really practicing saying no, practice saying yes to yourself. Yeah, the tongue. It's an easier thing to do. And so rather than trying to stay focused on saying no, stay focused on the positive, which is about saying yes. So if, your husband comes home and says, I need you to drive me to the airport at 2 a.m. and you're exhausted and you have to get up early and and it's okay to say, I would love to, but I haven't slept well all week and I really need to say yes to sleep for myself. Can I get you an Uber? Or whatever it is, or you make those compromises. Your kid needs 18 dozen brownies. You can say, I'd love to, but I've already committed to going to the gym tonight, and so I don't have time for that. But paying attention to what am I going to say yes to instead makes it so much easier to say no to some of the things that really get in the way of making yourself a priority. And I think it's important to make yourself a priority every day. Doesn't need to be a 4-hour nap. It can be 10 minutes. It can be 10 minutes with a cup of coffee in the morning and some quiet time. It could be an hour where you read in the evenings, but making time that is just for you and holding that time as sacred time. That it's not okay for other people to intrude on that time, but that you need to be really focused on it as being part of what you need for yourself. So do we have any other online questions? I want to make sure I'm checking in there. Let's see. I'm not always good at catching all of them. Let's see. All right. Well, I don't see any more online questions. So I'm going to go back to my list of email questions and we can talk a little. Let's see. So I've got another email here. You said that self-care is sexy. How does that help my relationship or make me sexier to potential partners? Well, I think I already talked about this a little bit, but I think it's worth revisiting, which is the idea that self-care is really about taking care of you so that you can be your best for other people. It's about you, but it isn't just about sort of being selfish or self-absorbed. And it's, do I look fabulous? Do I feel good? With no consideration for how that affects other people. But to think about it in terms of, I want the best from the people around me. Or if you're single and you're dating, I want to attract somebody who is interested in being their best for me. And so you have to start to say, well, am I being my best for them? And I think it's easy to get caught up in what we want from other people and not ask ourselves that question, which is, am I prepared to be in a relationship with somebody who's at their best? And usually the way to answer that is, am I at my best? If I'm at my best, then I'm going to help to encourage whoever is around me to be their best. And if I'm so focused on helping other people be taken care of or feel good or meet their needs or do whatever makes them happy instead of making it a reciprocal relationship where I'm happy and you're happy and we give and take and we compromise a little bit, then eventually you don't get the best from people because you don't have your best to give. And that's really why I say self-care is sexy. It's a great part of any relationship. It's an important, really important part of finding somebody to be with. Like as I said, if you're single and dating, the name of the game is putting your best self out there. And that doesn't just mean physically. It means working on yourself, giving yourself what you need in terms of, other healthy relationships, friendships, and family, um, doing things that manage your stress, taking time to be centered and think about what matters to you, what are your non-negotiables, what are your important values, and then doing things that really feed that and encourage that. And I'm big on play. I think that's a really important part of self-care, in terms of just doing fun things. We let kids play, and they're happy and joyful. And most of us want to feel like that even into adulthood, but we often give up the one thing that helps you get there, which is playing. And whatever that means for you. For some people, it's literally play. You get on the Xbox, you're playing board games, you play cards with your friends, you play basketball, you're on a kickball league, whatever that is. It's literally kind of things we immediately think of when we talk about play, games and sports. But play can be other things. It could be taking an art class. It could be, painting or sculpting. It could be photography, and that doesn't have to be a formal thing. It could be if you have a real passion for it. But it could just be going out and, selfies with your friends and making a point of going places where they're beautiful or interesting things to take pictures of, and doing that and being silly about it, and being comfortable in that silliness is a very, very important part of self-care. And it's an important part of making your adult life happier and healthier. Play is not something to be done after you work. Play is something that needs to be equally important in your life, just like work. Too often we think of play, that the opposite of play is work, and it's really not. The opposite of play in your life is sadness, discontent, depression, anxiety. There's a lot of great research around the importance of play, not only for children, but for adults. So if you're looking for what's the one thing I could do more of or add to my life that would improve my self-care, bring kind of a sexy, confident energy back into my life, I would say find something that feels playful and make it a priority every single week, whatever that means for you. For some people it's things like going to the movies, or it's a museum, or it's music, go dancing. That's always fun. And well, I think it's always fun. Not everybody would agree, but I think it's a great thing to go do. But get creative with it. And I would love to hear from other people about what are the things that you do that make you happy. I think that's a good way to start that list of self-care. It is also about taking care of ourselves when we're not feeling our best. It's things like hot bubble baths and going for walks and connecting with close friends that you can really talk to and be honest with. Sometimes it's about going to therapy or working with a coach. But it's also about fun and getting to know who you are. And in that process, you learn what it is that you need to feel your best. So that's my spiel on self-care and sexiness and play. Definitely play is so important. I wish that we could get more. I wish there was just a campaign for play. I think it would improve our lives as adults. It would certainly improve relationships. I'm big on date night. I think that's an important part of relationship care. And I think it's easily translated into self-care. Take yourself on a date. Your partner hates going to watch, professional basketball. Take one of your boys, or just go by yourself and have a good time. That's self-care. It's recognizing that there are things that you enjoy in your life, and you need to bring more of them into your life. Other creative ideas about self-care. For me, self-care is throwing a party. Throwing a party at my house is total self-care for me. So I'm not entirely sure what happened. We ran into some technical glitches this morning, and our kitchen conversation got cut short. So for all of you who were on the line or who were just trying to get on and couldn't, I apologize. Every now and again, technology just doesn't work. And I am an expert at a lot of things, but technology is not one of them. So unfortunately, we had some internet issues and I couldn't get back on, but I will promise you that we will reschedule our kitchen conversation on self-care for probably later this week or sometime soon. If you're not already on my email list, go to estherboykin.com/subscribe. Get on the list so that you make sure that you get a link to the new, improved, and hopefully smooth sailing kitchen conversation all about self-care. And of course, you'll get some of my blog posts as well and links to all the future kitchen conversations. So thank you for everybody who tried to join in. And again, I apologize for the tech issues. Hopefully, you got a little something out of it earlier this morning, and I will see you soon.